Hello lovely people, I'm K3N and welcome to Wonky Wednesday. In this video I'm going to piece a bento box log cabin block. Yep, I said that right. In fact I'm going to piece 4 at once because a bento log cabin block or a bento box block is typically, you start with a dark square. It's light and dark strips just the same. And then you put, and that's your corner square, and then you put your lights like that, and then you put your darks like that, and so on. And you just keep alternating lights and darks. Do you see? And then when you've made your blocks however big you want them to be, you combine them and you make secondary patterns and so on. So I thought, well, how about, because when you look at 4 together, laid out, what you see in the middle is a 4 patch. Just rearrange my strips back where they belong. So I thought, well, why not start making a piece of 4 patch, stitch it on, and then build up the roundies after that. It works in my head. We'll see what happens. So all I've got are my usual things, my background square, which is about 5 inches. You could also just piece it in your hands. You don't have to use a foundation square if you don't want to. And then I've got some dark strips. This time, because I'm going to use seams, they're slightly wider. They're sort of a good inch wide. But, you know, it's Wonky Wednesday. It doesn't really matter. Don't measure them, certainly, unless you want to. And light strips. So dark strips, light strips, foundation square, piecing thread. And I've also got on hand my 2 colours that I've been using now and then for top stitching, should I so desire. So the first thing I'm going to do, independent of the foundation square, is just make my little 4 patch. So you see my squares are nowhere near the same size, but I don't care. So I'm just going to put them, this cloth doesn't have a right side, but if you did, right sides together, and then just sew a seam somewhere in the region of 1/4 of an inch. And I'm not going to bother with back stitches and, you know, locking back stitches or anything like I might do if I was piecing for a quilt or something, because this is for my journal. I'm just doing a normal running stitch. If you did want to make a quilt or whatever, eventually maybe you'd want to do back stitches. I will just finish off with a back stitch there. Whoopsie, it's so fiddly and small. And snip. And then I'm going to press that seam to one side, and traditionally, if you're not a patchwork or a quilter, you press towards the dark piece of cloth. So I hold it like that with the seam at the top, and then I just flip the dark piece up and then finger press. It probably won't stay because it's silk noil and it's, you know, doesn't crease particularly well. But that's the principle. So then your seam is going towards the dark, because if you put your seam towards the light and you've got a thinner cloth, it might show through. That's why. So that's one little thing done, and I'm going to do the same with my other one. Make a knot, right sides together, sew a seam. I just thought it would be fun to try, rather than, originally I was going to do 4 little mini blocks to go in my journal, but I thought, well, that's going to be super fiddly because my page is only just over 5 inches square, so I'd have to make 2.5 inch, you know, 4 2.5 inch blocks, which would be a bit small. You know, it would have been doable, but then I thought, I see a 4 patch, let's make a 4 patch and see where we get. So that's what we're doing. So that's that one done. And the same, exactly the same with this one. I'll just make a knot. Oh, come on, there we go. And press the seam again towards the dark, so that way. And again, this cloth is not going to stay where I want it, but it doesn't matter. I'll make it, it's only tiny, I can hold it. So then you want them checkerboard styly, so that way. So then when you put these 2 little units right sides together, because those seams are now going opposite ways, can you see? You can kind of nest them together, and they sort of lock together. I mean, you know, this is not the proper way because of, you know, it's not accurate, but it's the wonky way. But that principle is a good one, because then when you open up your little 4-patch, your middle, your points should all, you know, meet nicely, and that's the theory anyway. We'll see in a minute. And I'll tell you proper, you know, and then you can do or ignore. You don't stitch through your seams. So you push that seam slightly to one side, you stitch into it, and I do then in general take a little back stitch. Do you see I'm right up against that seam, but not in the seam, because otherwise that corner can tend to pull out. And then I go with my needle through the base of the seam to come out the other side. So that seam's, you know, free to do what he wants. And now I'm ready to stitch here, and then I'll do the same on the back with the other seam. I'll push that out of the way. I did this, I think, on the rice bag video, if you've seen that. So I made 4 patches for the sides of my rice bag. And same thing again, just take an extra back stitch. You know, for this I probably wouldn't bother, but I just thought while I'm doing a 4 patch, let me at least show you that I do somewhat know the proper way, even though I choose not to use it most of the time. I'm just going to stitch to the end. And I'm going to leave my thread attached, because I might do a little trick that I learnt from Jude Hill. Because this thread the fabric won't press nice and flat because it's quite thick. So as you see, my points do meet in the middle. It's a nice little junction. And then on the back with a 4 patch, you want all the seams to go in the same direction. So that's why they need to be able to move, because now that one is going to go towards the light. I mean, obviously, if that then showed through on the front, you might have to change your mind about that. But if you get all the seams going around like a windmill, then what happens in the middle, if I can fiddle about, come on, is you get, there we go, do you see it? You get a cute little 4 patch in the middle on the back where nobody will ever see it. One day I'm going to make a 4 patch with it wrong side out, because I just love that little 4 patch. Anyway, so that is technically, you know, the proper way, because then the theory is when you then press that with an iron like a normal person, it lays as flat as it can. But I'm going to not press it with an iron. I'm going to come up into my seam where my seam is on the front there. So you see I'm about 1/8 of an inch away from the seam line, and I'm going to do the invisible baste right through the seam. Now the seams are where they're supposed to be. Oops. Which, like I said, is something I've seen Jude Hill doing. And it just makes them all stay where you want them. And it's an extra step, but you know, you don't have to do it. You know the invisible baste if you've followed me at any time at all. And I need to jump over because my seam's over there. No, I don't. I need to come out that way. Yeah, you are going to have to break your thread because you can't stitch an X without breaking your thread. I'm going to come out this way. And I'm just pushing it with my thumb as I go. I mean, this has not really got anything to do with the log cabin aspect, because I'm doing a log cabin 4-patch fusion, shall we call it. You see, and I just think it just makes it almost feel like one nice flat piece of cloth, even with these thick cloths that I've got. And I'm going to go and do the same on the other side, the other 2 seams. I'm sorry, I've got an itchy nose. So I'm going to start over here with this one. I'm not worried that those seams are completely different sizes. They're on the back. To me, that's why they're called seam allowances. You're allowed. As long as there's enough seam that it doesn't pull apart. I'm not bothered, certainly not for an art piece like this that's going in my journal. Right, so I know I need to come down this seam, which is on this dark brown piece. and when I get to the end I'm going to leave my thread attached. There we go. So there's a very wonky but quite cute little 4 patch that actually feels really nice and flat. And I really want to do some upside down ones. Anyway, that's not for today. Maybe we'll do that another time. So that will be the centre of our bento log cabin. So I think I'm just going to, if you want to put it exactly in the centre like we've been doing, you can crease, you crease your diagonals, and well, in shot, you know. Crease your diagonals, and then you've got those 2 crease lines. And then if you match your 4 corners, I mean my block's not remotely square, so it's not going to match, but I've just eyeballed. But if you want it to match, so perfectly. So I'm going to just now, right to the very edge of my little 4 patch, do some running stitch right at the edge, just biggish running stitches, just so it's there. These will be covered up by the next strip. So again, if you just would prefer to just put a pin in the middle and not bother, then you go for it. But I'm going to do it like this. And the kind of theme of this will be that we'll be joining pieces together and then attaching them to the block. And it might, if you were going to make a bigger quilt and you wanted to do the bento box design, and you're going to use bigger blocks, this might not be the best way to do it. Maybe it's better to do it the traditional way, like I showed you at the beginning. But I just thought, because it's a journal and it's all about experimentation, let's give it a go. A bento box, if you don't know, is kind of a packed lunch, which has Japanese and I believe also Chinese tradition. It's mostly associated with Japanese. And the word bento means kind of convenience or convenient. And they're partitioned, they have little portions in them, and there is a kind of accepted proportion that you have of a ratio of 4, 3, 2, 1, and the 4 is rice, and I think the 3 is a protein, like a fish, typically, and the 2 is vegetables, and then the 1 is a treat of some kind. I think I've remembered that correctly. Right, so actually I want to end my thread off. No, I'm going to just go all the way around. Ignore me. Ignore me, that was me thinking aloud and getting it wrong as usual. So I've just stitched all the way around. Now my little 4 patches attached to the foundation cloth. So now if you can kind of visualize it 1 corner block at a time, this corner block needs a dark and a dark, and this corner block needs a light and a light, and I want to put a strip here. So am I going to put a dark strip or a light strip? I need a bit of each. So what I thought I would do is just get 2 strips and join them somewhere in the line with this seam. In fact, I probably won't even measure in advance. I'm just going to get 2 bits. Of darkish bits. So say that bit's going to be this bit. I don't think I'll cut it yet. I think I'll just join it and cut it afterwards. No, I've done it wrong. That needs to go where the light is. So where there's light, you put the dark, and where there's dark, you put the light. Just get a bit of light. I had them all nicely laid out, and now I've messed them all up. There we go. That'll do. And I'll just cut the end because it's a bit slanty poos. That's a technical term. Put that in the scraps. So I'm just going to join these 2 strips, which are not remotely the same width, but it doesn't matter, together with a 1/4 inch seam, or a seam. And then I'm going to press, I think I'm going to press this seam open, and I don't know if I will baste it down. Let's see how it looks when I press it open. I do love basting seams down when I piece. There's just something very satisfying about it. So then you're going to stitch that to there, like that, and then trim it off each end. And that's how you get your dark there and your light there. I'm going to base the seams down. No, I think they'll stay because they're open. I'm going to end the thread off though because I need to be at the end. So now you can make a choice, either you lay it on now and cut it, and I think I might do that because my bits are quite long. So just line up your seam with your seam of your 4 patch and then just trim the ends. You can see my hand's in the way. Just trim the ends off, roughly somewhat straight. And then just put that right sides together, matching the seams. You know, it's Wonky Wednesday, I keep saying matching the seams. If you want to. If you don't want to, or if you want to make them deliberately wonky, you go for it. It's just the principle of the thing, of the layout of the lights and darks. It doesn't have to be perfect. And this is only a short bit of thread, but I think it's enough for this. So now I'm just stitching again through, and now I probably will, because I don't need to move my seams anymore, I'm just going to stitch over them. I might have to go in and through because it's quite a thick cloth. In and back, I mean. And that, I think, because it's, and when I stitch the next bit on, when I come round again, that seam will be trapped down both ends. But certainly for slow stitching, that seam basting thing, you create a lovely surface then to slow stitch into. Yeah, I'm going to get a new bit of thread, I think. So that's really a top tip. So you see that's quite bulky there, but that's flannelette sheet, that's silk noil, that's very thick cotton, and that's a very thick cotton. So that's just my choices of cloth. I think I'm going to put an applique pin in it. There we go. So now I need here, so I need dark here, because this is my light corner. So this section needs to be dark to make the L with that, and then this needs to be light. So I'm just going to do the same thing again. So that's my dark, and so that's where you just have to sort of visualize it as a quarter, because you've got a dark and a light piece, that you want the dark all the way along. Hope that's clear. I need a new bit of thread, don't I? I've nearly used up this spool of Silco, and it's not a nice wooden one. And I'm going to then have a crisis of what do I do? I'm keeping all these plastic spools. I don't really like to use them in scrolls, although I suppose there's no reason why I couldn't. It's purely aesthetic. But I don't want to throw them away. I wonder if I painted them, or I don't know. I don't know. I'm just keeping them in a jar at the moment. Just so as not to, because I like the label on them and all that, but I just wish they were wood. Anyway, enough wittering on about my plastic scroll. Spool came in a job lot in which there were some wooden ones. You know, one of those lovely boxes you find if you're super lucky and you like that kind of thing. With all sorts of, probably somebody's sewing kit in, who's no longer with us. I'm always happy to find those and give those a home, a good understanding home, you know. So just the same thing again. I know my 2 pieces are plenty long enough, so I'm just going to make a seam and then trim them later. I think that's the easiest way without stressing and measuring and so on. If you were worried that your strips might not be long enough, obviously just audition, but then be sure to make a allowance that you need a bit of a seam. So you only need a seam in the middle. You don't need a seam here. You match the raw edge. So to cut that off, press it open. Finger press it, and match it up with the centre, the 4-patch. Don't match it there because you need that to be dark, with the seam of the 4-patch that we made in the middle. Maybe it also needs a pin, because I've chosen all these tricksy cloths, but they were all on the top of my scraps, all laying there just asking to be used, lights and darks. And so I'm just going to, you know, start right over here, right at the end, and just make your seam. Whoops, put a knot in your thread first. Always helps. Well, you can do a little back stitch if you're so inclined to not put knots. I've done both, because that's what I would normally do when I was piecing, so apparently that's just habit. Did I check if this cloth had a... Oh, never mind, I'm putting the nicer side inside, but never mind, just like that. Both sides are quite nice. Looks like eucalyptus on silk there, that eco print. I'm going to have to go through and back again. And this is a bit of drop cloth. I like those. I put, you know, I just put a bit of old sheet down when I'm eco printing or doing natural dyeing or whatever, and then those eventually, after they've been used many times, sort of get eco printed themselves, and then they become so, you know, to my mind, super nice. Got my tail trapped. There we go. I start using them and put a new old sheet underneath as a drop cloth. Just do one little back stitch to end that off. Trim the thread away and cut this to length. Just match it with the raw edges of the other ones. And get the pin out. Probably need that pin again in a minute. There we go. And flip it up, finger press it down. So you see now this corner has got an L piece, and so now we need to go around this corner and so here, this again, visualise the corner. I haven't got enough hands. The corner. So here you need a light piece here, going all the way across there, and then a dark piece for here. I hope it's logical, you know, logical enough. Let's just get a bit of something. A bit of this. That's really wide. I might make that slightly narrower. Excuse me, I'm tearing. So there, so that's to make that L around that corner square, and then I need some dark here. Just join those two bits together. And see where we get to. I'm sorry, I'm not very chatty. I'm making videos in advance of going to England. When you watch this, I'll be in England. So I've been doing one a day, I think, for the last few days. And unbelievably, it's quite tiring just sitting and talking. Well, I know there are people that make a video every day. And I'm not sure I can do that. My videos always end up quite long, I guess there's that. But yeah, so I apologise if I sound a bit I'm looking forward to going to England. Be nice. I can stay with my lovely friend and get fed lots of nice food, and I have a lovely time playing in her studio, and you know, in between obviously there's the exhibition and so on. Oh, that's really thick, that. Oh, that pin's super blunt. I must say this is the only clover applique pins. I've ever bought one packet of them. I don't know how long I've had them, but years. And I use and abuse them, you know. I mean, I stick them through rust print and eco print, which is quite sturdy and, you know, quite old cloth. They very rarely get stuck through polyester or anything like that because I tend not to use that, but I must say they have stayed sharp. Got one or two that are slightly bent. But I have to say they seem pretty good quality. And I use them a lot, you might have noticed. I use them almost exclusively. I think probably unless I'm machine sewing. And then I have the clover pins with the flower head, you know, that lay flat from when I used to do a lot of machine sewing. They're super expensive, but they're really fine. Did I match my seam there? Doesn't look like I did. Oh, look, I'm completely off. I'm completely off. I was not paying attention. Let's have a look if I can bear it. Oh, it's Wonky Wednesday. I'm gonna just go with it. In fact, I might even be able to just stretch it a little bit. All over the place, patchworkers and quilters are crying at the thought of me doing this. At one point I would have taken that out and redone it. You know, I'm talking years ago. I'm gonna stop letting things like that bother me. For better or worse. Just personal choice. I think the question I ask myself now is, does it bother me enough that I want to take it out? And the answer is quite often, no it doesn't. Right, so that's nearly to the end of that strip. It's quite lengthy process because of the making the seams in between. If you wanted to lay them on raw edge, and you know the way we've done, like the way we did the Greek keys, for example, I think that was last week. So it's also difficult to keep in my head the sequence. I'm trying to film them in the sequence that you'll see them. But so I filmed Greek keys, and you will have seen it. But it hasn't been online yet for me today. It's very strange. It's quite easy to confuse me sometimes. Okay, so flip that up. Yeah, I would strongly recommend that you use thinner cloths than I've gone with for seaming. But yeah, if you wanted to do it raw edge here where you two bits met, you'd just have to overlap them. You know, in such, like you could put the light under or the dark under in such a way that the line was there if that bothered you that they lined up. And then just stitch them on, you know, around the outside edge like we have been doing. Right, so turn it. So now, again, you have to really focus on the corner of your fore patch that you're working around. So this length needs to be dark, and then this whole length needs to be light, because this is that corner, and this is this corner. So dark and light. Have I got anything here that's remotely a bit thinner? That's a bit neither dark nor light. A bit of this silk maybe. So here I need dark. The silk's very fray. I chose really tricksy cloths today. What about that one? That's a slightly better, I think. Whoops, dropped my needle now. It's all going, you know. It's all going okay. We'll get there. We'll get there in the end, and if it's not the end, we're not there yet. No, that's not right, is it? That's not the expression. It'll be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not the end. I think that's the expression. Oh, I just also did want to just recommend a channel to you as well, if you don't know her. And that's the lovely Bella of Rachel and Bella Crafts. They're a mum and daughter, and Bella's the mum. And I think I'll put a link to her channel down below. I think it's called Bella's Crafty Table or something like that. You know, she's a lovely Welsh lady. She's got the most, I think, soothing, lovely voice to listen to. And she always sounds so enthusiastic about what she's doing. Right, make sure I line my seam up this time with the right place. And I watched a couple of videos of her last night when I was doing some stitching in the evening to unwind a bit. And you're shouting at me. Luckily I heard you. That way round, Catherine. I was thinking about Bella. Yeah, and she's making a journal, and she was slow stitching on the cover. I think she called it thread doodling. And her daughter does artwork and then makes them into printables, you know, or digitals, or whatever you call them, those things. And Bella was working with something that Rachel, her daughter, had made. But yeah, she's just chatting with you like she's just in the room with you. She's lovely to listen to. And her husband comes in, and if she's saying things about her husband, you know, I won't give spoilers or anything. But yeah, I highly recommend going and having a listen and a watch of Bella. A lovely Welsh voice, sing-song voice. There we go. She is or was, she did actually fess up. She was doing the slow stitch with us, the Monday slow stitch. She did say that she does plan to return to it, but she's got a bit distracted by other things, which is, you know, absolutely fine. No obligation, of course. But I think she said she was going on holiday to France in the summer, and she was planning on taking it with her to do then. What's happened there? Yeah, it's quite bulky seaming onto a foundation. So I really shouldn't have chosen. I feel like a couple of weeks ago when I did the paper weave, when I watched the video back to edit, all I was doing was complaining about my glue because I didn't have a glue stick. And this week I'm just complaining about I hope it doesn't come across that I'm not really complaining, I'm just mentioning, you know, it's my own fault. If it really bothered me, I could obviously stop the video, go and change fabrics and go and start again. But I think it's maybe useful if I do things not exactly how they should be done, as a warning to others. Right, so trim that one off, and then that is one complete round. Oh, scissors. Hopefully by the time you watch this I will have new scissors. I'll start complaining about them now. Okay, so there we go. So basically what we've got is a little 4 patch in the middle, which looks super cute, with a little L shape of the opposite colour framing it on 2 sides. Do you see? So your next round you do the same thing but the opposite. So where you've got this dark shape L here, you need to put 2 lights, like so. Do you see? And then where you've got the light, obviously, you put 2 darks. So you do the same process and do another round. And I think I'm going to go and do that and then come back. And okay, I'm back. I'm sorry, I got carried away. I meant to come back sooner. Anyway, it has taken quite a long time, so you'll be grateful that I stopped and went and did it on my own. And also there was a huge rainstorm in between. I don't think you would have heard me because it was absolutely lashing against my window here. So I'm just putting my last pieced strip on. And when I came round to the outside line, I did what we've talked about before, in that I adjusted the width of my strips so that I ended up, you know, meeting the edge of the foundation block. And while I've been stitching, I thought, would this not make a fabulous Japanese rice bag? And so now I really want to do that. And I think I'll probably make slightly bigger squares, because I made this to fit in my journal. But I do think I really want to do that, and in these colours as well. So if you have not yet, I do have a video in my tutorials playlist, how I make Japanese rice bags. So all you would do, you would make yourself, I think I use 6-inch squares for that one, but you can make them any size you want. You just make yourself 4 like this, instead of the 4 patches that I use in the video, and the rest of the process will be the same. I mean, a bento box rice bag, it just is crying out to be made, isn't it? I don't know when I'm going to get a chance. We all know that, don't we? So many projects, so little time. But I shall write it down in my commonplace book under my ideas section, in case I forget. My external brain, in case you haven't heard me talk about it before, that I made recently on here. It's already got so much written in it. I don't know how I managed without it all this time. Okay, so I'm just trimming those last 2 off level with the edge. And then when I flip this up, I'll see if I need to do any more trimming. You could also have done these seams to one side. I did them open to make it flat, but because every junction, the line, in principle there, you see, you've got a 4 patch, do you see? So if you'd press this seam to the dark and then this seam to the dark, they would nest in the same way. So you could do that, but open works fine. In general, if I know I'm going to be doing a lot of stitching on the top of these foundation pieced blocks, I press open, just to keep the bulk down. Right, so there we go. So do you see, as you're working, you could come unstuck, especially when it's small, and I think the best way to avoid coming unstuck and sewing your thing on the wrong way around is to visualize, or even just put your 2 hands there, and that's your corner, you know, that's your starting corner, and so then it has to go dark, dark, light, light, dark, dark, light, light, and so on. Because otherwise, if you're in here, you might think that's your 4 patch. Do you see? Can you see with my big hands in the way? And then, you know, it might throw you off. So you could maybe, I don't know, put a little pin in each of those to mark them all. I'm sure you're up to it. It's probably just me who goes wrong. But just be aware of that, because it can be a little bit confusing. I don't know why I even really didn't need to trim that, but apparently I'm doing it anyway. Right, so I think I'm going to just do a line of invisible base all the way around the edge to get them pins away. And then I think, I'm just looking at the threads I've got here, I think I'm going to do my sort of go-to, really, if you like, which is just some running stitch, and just do some lights in the light and darks in the dark. And I'm just thinking I have the desire to put a red cross in the middle, just one red cross stitch, just as a nod to the log cabin. So that's my stitching all planned out in my head. I was thinking about it while I was doing the piecing. I do like doing piecing sometimes, you know. I like raw edge and collage and all that stuff. But sometimes I just like the simplicity of sewing 2 bits of cloth together. But yeah, I like the way this looks. I hope you do too. I don't know why I never thought of making a rice bag with it before. You could make a rice bag that you used as a lunch bag, and that would be, you know, full circle back round to the bento inspiration. You get a knot in your thread. No, it's not going to behave. Come on. No, it's really not going to. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Right, what I do in that case is this is the tail, and I know that because it slides up and down the other. Do you see that? So I make sure I get that well out of the way. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. and I cut it as close as I can without cutting through the working thread, and then I pull up, and then there, that little bit of fluff either comes off or it's come off. Do you see? Not gone. I can stitch on. Phew, crisis averted. I always try that. Otherwise, especially when you've got a tiny bit like that, you're a bit stuck, you know, because you want to get it through to the back to finish off, and it's so small you can't cut it. You wouldn't have enough left to get in your needle. You don't want to be unpicking if you can avoid it. So yeah, if you can get your 3 tails, your 3 bits of thread that are all meeting, and you can locate the one that slides up and down the other 2. I hope that makes some sense. It's worth a try. The worst that can happen is you'll cut through your working thread, and then you just have to unpick back a bit so you've got a long enough thread to bury, you know. So yeah, always try it. Don't get another. I'm going to get a new thread. I'm asking for trouble. There we go. And I think if you made these foundation things and you did a rice bag, I'm just thinking of myself when I do it. If you use something a bit sturdy for the lining, I don't think you would need to put wadding, because it's already, because of all the seams and, you know, the foundation, and especially with slightly thicker cloth, quite thick. So I don't think I'd use wadding. I think I'd just use something a bit thicker for the lining, maybe a linen or something, or an upholstery fabric, or, you know, whatever. If you don't mind a floppier bag. If you want a firmer bag, then, you know, go for the wadding. Oh, well, my nose keeps itching. They say someone's talking about you and your nose itches. I hope they're saying nice things about me, if that's true. Right, where was I? Here we are. And you see that my 4 patch is not square. 2 of the one is kind of squarish, and the other 3 are definitely rectangles. But I do genuinely, I always feel the need to, you know, say I could do it well if I tried, if I wanted to. I'm choosing not to, but I genuinely prefer the look of it. I really do. I just find it more interesting than things all lined up and, you know, precise. But each to their own. Some people will look at that and find it disturbing, and that's okay too. Well, not that you're disturbed, but, you know, that you prefer yours to be neat and square. So I'm just going to whip round with my invisible baste, which it's a good job I like to do it, because I was going to say it's a good job I like to do it, but because I do it a lot, but I probably do it a lot because I like to do it, but I certainly like the result it gives always. It just melds everything together. And when you're piecing this, in the beginning it sort of visually doesn't really make sense, especially when it's so small and wonky, but as you get a couple more rounds on, and I've squeezed on 3 rounds in total on this little 5-inch-ish square foundation piece, suddenly the pattern appears, you know. And that's one of the things that I find endlessly fascinating about these log cabin-y type things. It's sort of, it's structure, but it's wonky structure. I mean, it wouldn't stand up. My log cabins wouldn't stand up if they were real log cabins in a high wind, that's for sure. Well, they are structurally sound from the point of stitching, but I don't think they would translate into structurally sound buildings. Oh, I don't even know what I'm whittering on about now. Anyway, this is the final side, and then I can switch to my fancy thread. So, you know, if you don't want to put a red cross in the middle, of course you don't. If you want to do something else with your stitching, of course you can do that, but I just thought it would be a nice nod in the general direction of a traditional log cabin to just put a red cross to mark the centre. X marks the spot. It's stopped raining now and the sun's come out. It's been the most bizarre spring. I was talking to friends in England. I have a group of fellow slow stitchers, and we have a fortnightly Zoom chat and share our work and help each other with ideas and, you know, support each other and so on. But we're truly friends now after many years. It's not only about the work anymore. But anyway, they were saying that about how strange the spring's been in England. The endless rain and wind, and in one day you can have, you know, nearly all the weather. And they're saying, oh, they supposed that I would have had nice sunny weather. Well, we haven't really. We've had 1 or 2 days. The thing is, the minute the sun does come out here, it is straight away hot. Right, anyway, that's enough about the weather. Sorry, I bashed the table a bit hard and probably made you wobble. So I must be able to find a bit of red in here. This is why I save all these tiny bits. Well, many reasons why I save them. That's now going to be a long bit. Those are a tiny bit. Sometimes I just throw in a few inches. That's quite a long bit. Sorry. Oh, shall I just use that bit? I'm just going to have one more bit and see if that's... Yeah, there we go. Is it? Yeah, there we go. See, that's just literally a few inches long. But it's ample to make one little cross in the middle of my... I think I can hear thunder now. In the middle of my... There's a nice shade of red, yeah. So I'm just going to make a knot. And do them across. I'm just going to do a biggish. So I'm going to just come up in the corner of one of those. And go across down into the corner. The opposite way you know how to make a cross, I'm sure. Just like that. X marks the spot. And that's all the stitching I'm going to do in those middle 4 squares, I think. See, that was plenty. I might even put it back in case, yeah, I think I could get another cross out of that, so I'll put it back in there. Right, so now I'm going to start with the light colour. Sorry I headbutted you. I haven't got any in the odds. Which is still pinky coloured because I still have my cream thread still downstairs. I don't have a lot of cream thread. I think I've got some in the tin of the vintage embroidery flosses that I bought, but if I have any cream thread it usually ends up, whoops, I've tried to pull 2 strands off at once. And now I'm committed. Yes, it worked. Yeah, I usually end up putting it in natural dye or onion skins or something. Eco printing around a bundle. Right. So I'm going to stitch all my cream-ish thread in one go, because I think I can do a route round, yeah. So I'm just going to start Stells, sorry, she's got her Grinch feet already. I think her fur grows much quicker in the spring. Anyway, we've got an appointment on Monday before I go to England. She will already have been clipped by the time you see this. I'm just going to do a line of running stitch vaguely up the middle of the light coloured strips with this pinkish creamish thread, just to emphasize the shapes really. So I'm going to turn the corner here. Yeah, so she's got hairy Grinch feet, and of course she's been in the woods this morning. And now she's picking at them to get the bits out. I shall go and give her a proper groom. Actually, that's quite pink, that thread, but I think it'll be okay. But she's going to the lovely Christine on Monday, so she'll be given a nice bath and a clip and nails trimmed and ears cleaned. I do clean her ears myself as well though. I'm going to hop up here now and go around that line. Yeah, because she's a cockapoo, so her mother was a cocker spaniel and her father was a poodle. And but she gets that spaniel, although her ears aren't quite as long as a spaniel. She is prone to that, you know, ear problems, itchy ears and so on, and waxy ears. So she gets them cleaned fairly regularly. The worst thing is if I take her down into the woods to the stream, she goes diving like an otter for stones. She puts her entire head under the water. She literally dives under the water for a stone and comes up with it. And so then when you get her home, you have to make sure you dry her ears really well. She's a real character. She's bizarrely though, because I don't know if poodles are known for swimming, but spaniels certainly are, because they use them for retrieving ducks and things, don't they? But she's not a very good swimmer out of her depth. She loves to go in the water and splash about. I'm just going to jump up here and go around there. And, you know, if there's a stone that she particularly wants, she dives down, she can't get it, she'll come back up for air, but then you'll see her with her 2 feet feeling about for the stone she wants, and then when she locates it with her feet, she dives back under and up she comes with it. That's her favourite game. But if she's ever gone into deep water, once we were walking somewhere and there was like a harbour wall, it wasn't the sea, it was a lagoon. And she went in, she didn't fall in, she jumped in, and it was a drop of maybe 2 or 3 feet to the water. But she was struggling. Hans had to lay down on the path, on the concrete, and reach over and grab hold of the scruff of her neck and hike her out, because she was really not good at swimming, let's put it that way. But anyway, she learnt her lesson. She hasn't done that again in a hurry. But she likes places where she can go in, and if he hadn't been able to reach her, then he'd have been in for her, or I would. No, he would have been in first, I think. But it was February, it was Wales, it was cold, but we would not have left her to struggle. Don't worry about that. I'm sure you weren't worried. But yeah, she loves the water, but she likes sort of places that have got a shallow, where she can paddle in, you know. So I'm just working my way around. I don't know if I am going to be able to do it all in one go. I don't think I am. Anyway, I'll go on until I run out of places to go. I'm just hopping down here now. I think I should have gone, I don't know. No, that's not possible. I'm not going to stress over it. I'm just going to stitch until I can't jump, and then I'll just end my thread and start it again. And then I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the dark coloured thread. Yeah, I like the look of that. Kind of emphasises that offsettedness, if you know what I mean. Because it's not about the square. To me, it's about the... I can't think of a word other than offsettedness, which is not a word, but to do with the fact that it's offset. Have I missed that one out? Could I have? No, couldn't, could I? I don't know. I can't work it out. My brain won't do it. So I need to do this, and then I need to go back and do this bit. So probably that invisible base around the edge wasn't necessary because this would have held it down. I'm now thinking about sewing it in my book. See, I can learn. But if I want light and dark, I've gone a bit further up than I meant to there. If I want light and dark stitching in the relevant areas, then I'll either have to sew it in my book with 2 threads, or I'll have to just sew it in, you know, not along its entire length. I think I'll do that last thing that I said. So I'll try and remember to leave one line on the outside of the dark unstitched. So I've done that, I need to do this bit, and it's all the way over there. Just enough? I think so. I think it's just enough. Actually, now I'm looking at it though, wondering if I even want to do the dark, if I just want to leave it at that. I don't know. No, I want to do the dark. I can never have too much stitching in my humble opinion. Right, so that's the light done. And Stella will stay here at home while I'm in England, because Hans will be home to look after her and Fred. And he will feed the horses, but my neighbour across the road has also, she's got her own horse up at the local stables, but she's a very horsey, experienced person, so she will keep an eye, because it's, you know, Hans knows the horses and they know him and he's happy feeding them and everything, but I just like to have someone who knows horses well, just to keep an eye, you know, in case there's something. Hans will count that they've still got 4 legs and that they eat their tea and that they're all standing upright where they should and so on, but do you know what I mean? You might not spot a subtle thing. Whoops. So I've got this Valdani cotton. It's a bit thicker. It's a little bit variegated, sort of dark green to black. So it's quite nice. Right, so if I go there, 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 yeah, no you can't. So I couldn't leave it alone. The idea that you might be able to do it all in one. So I want to leave that unstitched, I think, to put it in my book. If you can see a way and it's irritating you that I can't, I do apologise. Oh dear, I don't know. Pulled my little tail through. It's very possible that when I watch it back I'll see a way, because I see things when I'm editing that I don't notice when I'm sat here with it right under my nose and I'm chatting away at the same time. So anyway, but I hope you liked it. I hope you like the bento block, and you'll give it a go. And maybe make a rice bag. It's a bit thick, I'm going to have to go in and out. And I'm not done with log cabins yet. It's amazing what you can do with just a simple set of things, you know. So basically it's strips of cloth, lights and darks, and that's it. We didn't even have the red hearth square here, although I put the cross there to reference it. So now I don't know if I should have gone up there or I should have done... Oh, Catherine, stop going on. Sometimes I annoy myself. I hope I don't annoy you. So yeah, so Hans will be home alone. He's quite good at looking after himself. Well, he has to be, because I'm not one of those women who goes and shops for him and you know. My mother used to leave my father meals labelled on plates with microwave instructions in the freezer if she went away for a week or so, usually with her golfing chums when she was younger. And so he would have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it would be written on whether he had to put it in the microwave or put it in the oven or whatever it was he had to do with it. But my father would have been perfectly capable of feeding himself, it would have to be said. He used to do a lovely souffle omelette. He just lived on those. And he was very good at a salad, which sounds simple to, you know, a salad, but he would do it with all kinds of goodies in. You know, a real mixed salad. So he wouldn't have starved. It's a little bit my mum, you know. I don't want to use the word controlling, but I can't think of a different one. But he would have a little rebellion. He would tell me, sometimes I have Tuesdays on a Wednesday and Wednesdays on a Tuesday. Don't tell your mum. Bless him. I was telling somebody the other day that the chap in the Babe the Sheep Big film, I can't remember the actor's name, that says, you know, that'll do pig. It reminds me of my dad, the way he speaks. He's kind of got a look of him. He doesn't look like him. If you put a photo of them side by side, you wouldn't think, oh yes, they look like each other. It's more mannerisms and, you know, the way of speaking. That's one of the reasons why I say that'll do pig. My father didn't say it, but I've got that connection in my head. I think I first started saying it to my horse. If I'd made him run. He's not that keen on running. Who can blame him with me sitting on his back? I'm not that keen on running either. Pootling along is fine. Right, I'm utterly in the wrong place now if I want to. Oh, I know what I could do. I could sew it on the corner, couldn't I? Why not? Nothing to say. I have to sew it along a long edge. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to end that off. I'm going to go and fill in that little inside bit that I haven't done. I love the back, as always. But I really like the fact. Stop banging the desk, Catherine. You make the camera wobble. Yeah, I just need to go in here. On the weaving week, I completely missed out one whole section of stitching because I was stitching through the dark strips, you know, when I wove paper and cloth together. And then I was supposed to stitch all through the light stitches. And I didn't. I didn't even notice or realise I'd done it until a lady in the comments asked me why I didn't. I said, because I forgot. No good reason whatsoever, I just forgot. Right. So just put these few stitches in here, and then I can see how it's going to go in. Oh, don't get in a knot now. So I'm getting too rough with it. Yeah, it's Friday for me today, although it's Wednesday for you. And you'll be Wednesday, not the coming Wednesday for me, but next Wednesday. It's my last Friday in France. I go to England in a few days. And Hans has been away a week and he'll be home this evening, so we have a few days together before I go off. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Right, here's my book. Make some space. Got this bit of thread. This is getting nice and filled up as well. I had 3 signatures in here, didn't I? I don't remember how many pages I put in here or if I had any intention of how long it would last. You can always go back and put something on the facing pages if you want to put more. So those are out of order because I put that on the paper. So this is paper. This is the middle of this signature. So if I do it there, I could just stitch it there. I think that's what I'm going to do. Just up in that corner. I come through the back of the cloth, and I'm just going to stitch in exactly the same way, only I'm going to be going through the paper as well. This is sketchbook paper, and it's, I think, yep, I can just manage to bend it and stitch normally. Sorry if it goes blurry if my hand comes up. You want to pull the thread as flat to the paper as you can, especially when you're stitching something thicker to it. Because if you start going like that, making that sort of gouging motion, I find that's when you're more likely to make a hole in your paper. So I'll try and not have my arm coming up into your face while I'm doing it. Whoops. Turn it again. My head's not getting in the way. Usually, in the Monday project, my nose ends up in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen as I try to get in to see what I'm doing. There we go, nearly there, a couple more stitches. A bit harder this way for some reason. Get my left hand in. I wish I could sew like Martelt. She can sew with both hands. Not at the same time, or not that I've seen. I wonder if she could sew one thing with each hand. Leonardo da Vinci could apparently draw with a pencil in each hand, 2 different things. But no, Martelt is left-handed, I think, mostly. Martelt from A Daily Dose of Paper. But she can also stitch with her right hand. I think that's the right way around. She'll tell me if I'm wrong. And sometimes it would be handy if you're stitching up against a book spine or whatever, if you could switch to the other hand. Which I can obviously just pull the needle through with my other hand, but right, I'm just going to kind of do a strange little stitch on the front, and I'm not going to do dangles or anything because it would be in a bit of a strange place. There we go. So that is the bento box block, the log cabin bento box block, but in principle we've made 4 in one go. So I hope you like that. I will do some editing because I do think this is quite long, so I hope that the editing is well enough done that it's not irritating. I do my best. I'm not very technically minded. And as always, thank you so much for watching and your support and comments and, thumbs ups and all the rest of it. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm loving it. Thank you for being with me on this journey of YouTube. And I look forward to you joining me next time for more cloth tales. Bye bye.